Well, thanks so much for joining in on this earnings conversation with the management of Praj Industries. Mr. Shishir Joshipura, as usual, joins us right now to talk about the quarter. Not just as much about the numbers for the quarter, but also about trends that may have shaped up in the 3 months from the last time that we spoke to him. Mr. Joshipura, good having you. Thanks for joining in. Hope all is safe.
Yes, all good, Neeraj. Back to work. I had a friendship with the dreaded virus, but I'm good now, so no problem.
Yeah, I think it's going out and visiting most people. Some people are meeting catastrophic consequences, but I'm happy that you are all safe and sound. So touch wood.
Yes, so much.
Can we talk a bit about how the quarter and kind of, I thought it kind of went on expected lines simply because the revenue growth was solid in line with what you had spoken about. Execution looked very good. Margins stayed under a bit of pressure compared to what the street estimates were. How would you rate the quarter?
I think as you rightly said, on the order intake front, I think we did much better. In fact, our best ever numbers for the quarter. On the margin side, very clearly, we had already said that the runaway increase in commodity prices is going to impact on the whole year basis. Actually, we have said on a 200 basis points, so that's going to happen. And so that's what is playing out now. So because obviously the orders in this quarter and I think maybe another 3-5 months, we'll see the maximum brunt of this runaway rises that we saw and witnessed. So I think, but it's now increase is not at the same steep level that it was in the past. So at some moment in time, it will start to stabilize is our expectation. So if that stabilizes, then we are not in a problem zone. So, and I was telling our CFO also that this is a transient kind of phenomena. The more important is that we are able to hold on to our market share. We are able to create new opportunities. We are able to build an order book. Yeah, and to me that is the more exciting part. So I know maybe it went a little bit unnoticed, but at the end of these 9 months, we actually surpassed last year on all key parameters of order booking, sales, profits. So from that perspective, it is good, but I don't think one can rest on what is already done. We just need to focus on what needs to happen here onwards. So margin is clearly a challenge that we need to address, and we are doing a lot of work around it. How do we build the future beyond, say, 25, up to 225? I think we are very, very clear now in terms of possible. So what actions we take now to build future? That's the critical part.
That would be an interesting conversation to have at the second half of today. I just want to, I'll come to the larger picture in a moment. I just want to get a couple of these routine questions out of the way. So would you reckon that save for commodity cost ups and downs, which are almost impossible to predict for the best of names and the best of companies, save for that, would everything else be working as per plan? And therefore, would you believe that pricing, employee costs and availability, other factors, and of course, say for logistics, which are also a bit of a headache, but logistics and input costs, if we strip those two, then the other things are constant, and therefore, whatever margins you report for quarter 4 or quarter 1 or quarter 2 of the next year would largely be a factor of how the movements in these two variables are?
Well, to a large extent, yes. There is another factor which also starts to play out in our kind of business, and that is what's the mix between international business to domestic business. And right now, the domestic business has grown at a very, very rapid pace. So from a percentage perspective, it is a lower margin business compared to international business. And so we are moving from something like 65-35 to 80-20 kind of a situation. So there's a big change that's going to happen that we'll witness for the time being because the rapid rise in the domestic side. We are on absolute terms, we are growing on the industrial business side as well and growing very well. But the domestic rise is very, very rapid. So it's not at the same pace, although as I said, both of them are growing at high speed. It's just that one happens to be at higher speed. So that will also have an impact on the overall margin.
Okay, I'm sure you're not complaining though. So in which case, for the near term, because business is coming and you're executing on the domestic side, safe to assume that people should not look at historical EBITDA margins and compare to what could happen even in FY23? Because presumably, looking at the ethanol movement in India, the domestic business will likely stay elevated, no matter how well you do on the international front.
Yes, to some extent, what you're saying is correct. At the same time, if this whole commodity steep curve does come under some kind of moderation, which we believe it will, that would definitely play out. It will allow us to get a leverage out on our costs. So today, what is happening is, so we are discussing internally. We found that this was one quarter where we actually saw all our actions take roots, and marginally, just marginally, only for this quarter, our margins are slightly better than in the first 6 months. So the impact is beginning to get visible, but of course, it will take time before we actually see it in numbers. And for that, whole host of external internal factors will have to align.
This is the real-time cost model or the advanced predicting model that you guys have embarked upon.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So fine. We have that out of the way. And so since you spoke about international versus domestic, give us a color on the order book. You had, excuse me for not knowing the number this quarter, but the trend this quarter, but as of until the last quarter, you had 6 straight quarters of better order book positioning than the previous one. This number is obviously lower, I presume, than the second one. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought at 950 crores, lesser than the
950 for the quarter. So the order carry forward is 2600 crores.
2600 crores, which is all-time high for you?
Yes, it is.
Which is all-time high for you. Okay. So, and 58% jump in the quarter, 56% order book YOY to 2600 crores. You can't find a fault. I presume that in this, while the percentage share of the domestic has gone up, international, as I heard you say, has also done well.
Yes. So as I was telling my team, and I have no problem in sharing this, I was telling my team that we've become big, but we have to get healthier.
Okay.
We have to get healthier. So, and healthier is a parameter where this profitability, margin side, that's where the game. So we've taken a lot of actions. Our costs are under control, so that's not a problem, other than the external cost, externally impacted costs. I think so. That's the good part of it. But we are very focused on ensuring that we are able to take actions to the extent that we can. We try and neutralize the external impact. As you rightly said, nobody can predict, and we are in no different boat.
Okay, so I heard you last time tell me, right, that you are advancing the capex plan simply because by 1 year, and it's a good problem to have, of course. If indeed this pace of order inflow continues, and due to a variety of factors which I would want to ask you about, 2 or 3 things that have happened, which I would love to have your views on. My question largely is, would the lack of capacity be a constraint on execution at all as things stand for the next couple of quarters? Because I believe any capex that you understand as well will take some time to fructify.
No, Neeraj. You're absolutely correct that even if we start spending money today, it will be 12 months by the time it actually comes to delivery from that infrastructure. So no, we are very clear that we are able to meet. But if I have to meet, let's say beyond 24, then I will have to start thinking now, which was earlier thinking it is beyond 25. So we brought it forward by a year. So we have to start thinking in terms of improving our entire delivery infrastructure, if I can use that word, in many forms, which will include manufacturing capacity, outsourcing capacity, vendors, supply chains, logistics, the works. So I think that is where we'll have to see how we go about, and we are embarking on a plan to augment it. We have decided that we'll go forward with it. We are right now casting the numbers to see in how many crores of rupees this will eventually translate into. So we will do all those permutation, combination, numbering, and hopefully by the time we meet next quarter, I would be able to even tell you a number of what we spent.
Okay. But okay. So I'll save the best question for the last, which is I want to understand from you how you're thinking about planning for beyond 2025. But let's talk about the 2 or 3 near-term things. You had spoken last quarter to us about around the year ethanol production, sugar to starch, and how that is shaping up. I read a comment from you from this quarter wherein you're saying that ethanol as a building block for renewable chemicals. So now we are no longer talking about only ethanol through different means to be used for fuel, but for renewable chemicals as well. There's also this tie-up that you've done with IOC, which I'll come to talk about as well. But the renewable chemicals thing sounded interesting. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. So that answer I had given in response to understand as to what can happen with ethanol. And I said one, of course, is a clearly known use to us, which is its additive as a fuel additive, or itself as a fuel itself, which is what the flex fuel policy will bring about at these things. But what happens next? And then it iterates, right? So then ethanol becomes, and I was saying that ethanol is like a brick. It's a building block for many things moving forward in the chemical world. So I can iterate that into an aviation fuel. I can take it and make it into bioplastics. So that's the chemical part of it. And so on. So we can keep iterating it to its different forms, because it's like a brick. And if I have a brick, I can build any shape of the building. Right? So that's the whole idea behind it. So ethanol is a very basic building block in chemical world. And we can use that because it is a very good hydrogen carrier. So there are many uses that will come to, in future as technology start to develop. Can I use it as an onboard hydrogen carrier for cars? Okay, where I convert this onboard energy to hydrogen. So there are many H2O, H2 hydrogens. So there are many ways in which we can look at how many uses can ethanol iterate to. And I'm saying that there are many uses that it can iterate to, and there are a lot of technologies in the work on development side is going on. Some are already proven, some are in development technology. We will see as the time unfolds as to what this one brick can do.
Okay, so 2 or 3 quarters ago, when you said that there are people who are obviously asking you that after 20%, what will happen? And at some point of time, maybe diesel could be a factor too. But there are obviously other streams which are either already opened up, or or at least I'm coming to know about it right now, that there are so many other building block, ethanol being a building block for so many other chemicals as well, that even if we reach the 20, or whenever we reach the 20% blending, post that, the requirement for ethanol machinery need not slow down if indeed the use case for ethanol is expanding.
Yes, Neeraj, that's well captured by you. So EBP 20 will come to an end as a capacity building program in 2025. Okay. So what happens next is a very, very simple question. So two things. Let's understand why is EBP 20 there? Because you are substituting 20% of petroleum-based product, crude oil-based product with a biologically sustainable product, is locally produced, and all the benefits that. So the same thing applies when you blend it to diesel. Right? Exactly the same logic. Because it's not that I'm producing diesel in India and I'm importing petrol. It's not like that. I still import crude oil and I cut it to different distillates. So similarly, here, if we have ethanol, then the next step in India for ethanol will be driven from 3 parameters. One, what happens to flex fuel engine policy? I think we should hear soon about it. The second one is about what happens to the diesel blending program, and it is our estimate that in a couple of years' time it will get notified, because it generates same amount of benefit for the economy, for the government, for everybody. So, and at 7% blending in diesel, it will create a market equivalent of the EBP 20 on ethanol. So it just doubles the market size from there onwards, just on one program. Flex fuel by itself will drive, creation of a different kind of a market. Already, I think there's an interview by Mr. Tarun Kapoor, ex-petroleum secretary and the new head of the premier government of body on petroleum products pricing, and he said that he does not believe that a day is far off and we'll see 40% of that coming up. So things will change. Brazil has already shown the path. We have no reason not to do it.
Of course.
Inventing the wheel all the time. It's already, as an economy, it's already being done somewhere else of a similar size economy. It's not that it's a very small country with some exceptional stuff, very similar to our economy. So I think so that's one dimension. Right? The second one will, so these are what I would call as market dynamics driven. Right? There is another one which will come on what happens with ethanol as a building block. So aviation fuel, we have all the mixing that we talked about is for surface transport, right? The cars and the trucks and the scooters and 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. But if we go to the next step and we say, hey, what happens to the other modes of transport, the aviation fuel, for example? What do you do there? So there are approved pathways, as they are called, of how do you produce aviation fuel, because unlike in petroleum products where you mix ethanol, In case of a sustainable aviation fuel, it is a drop-in fuel, means it's the molecular construction is exactly the same molecule. So it's substitute 1:1. So the molecule that you get on the crude petroleum route and the molecule that you get from here is identical. So aviation fuel is a drop-in fuel, you directly drop it. There is no mixing required. Right? It's the same fuel, exactly same. It just comes from a different route. So aviation fuel will start to, so from 27 onwards when the CORSI agreements kick in, every year airlines will be required to add in 1% of their total fuel, and there's a whole scale that is given as how it progresses on sustainable side. So if that starts to happen, we are looking at very large capacity plants. I mean, just to give you an idea, if we go to from starting from 1% in 27, if you look at a 5-year horizon from there, 27 to 42, so that's not far out. We are looking at a creation of almost 30 to 40 plants that will have to produce aviation just to meet India's commercial aviation requirement. So it's a very different ball game that will unfold on that side as well, and the feedstock on that is same. Ethanol will become the. So that's just one example. Same thing can iterate on the bioplastic side. So what I'm trying to say is that we have seen the base molecule play out right now, but we will start to see its iterative forms play out as we move forward.
Got it. You've taken a baby step, or not a baby step, really. Let me not qualify it as anything. You've taken a step towards this by doing this tie-up with IOC. I think it happened in November, if I'm not wrong. But can you talk a bit, because I read 2 or 3 notes, all and no fault of anybody, but because it's a bit of a black box for most people to try and comprehend what could possibly happen in the space, and therefore what's the role that you and IOC could play out here, and what is the kind of benefit that comes in to the books, the balance sheet and P&L of Praj. Can you talk a bit about this, the possibilities and the roadmap?
So, I think as we move forward into a very new era of energy management across the country, we realize that it is very important to have partnerships and collaboration. On our own, we are not going to win. There is no lone player game. Okay, we have to get complementary skills on the table. We have to make sure that those complementary skills, where 1 + 1 becomes 11, and not 1 + 1 remains at 2, was the idea behind this. So when just 1 second, we have to think in terms of what can coming together of 2 companies or 2 organizations do, right? And therefore this JV was born, because IOC obviously has a tremendous power as far as when it comes to market end of things, right? No question. They are also a company that has invested heavily into understanding technology development of it. We are a company which is, for whose life, bloodstream, whatever you want to call it, is biofuels. That's who we are. So I think it was important that we have a collaboration with one of the world leaders on the aviation fuel side. India is in 27. We will start to need replacing the current fuel with sustainable fuel. So those are the drivers that are happening. But there are other developments, right? There are. I think what's not visible to people today, but will probably in a couple of years' time we will start to see it is today we don't talk about feedstock at all. Right? We say feedstock is abundantly available, whether it's sugary feedstock, starchy feedstock. At some moment in time, the question will come: where is the feedstock? And I think that is where we have to start looking at alternative feedstocks. And those alternative feedstocks are in form of straws and the 2G technology, and we are building for IOC a 2G refinery. So there are already a lot of I would say exchange of ideas that is taking place between us and them. And we felt that coming together between 2 organizations to actually look at the entire landscape of biofuels and not only restrict ourselves to 1G ethanol or 2G ethanol or CBG or aviation fuel, but look at the whole gambit of things. Because today, if you look at it, they run the whole refinery, right?
Sure.
So why not think of similar lines on the bio side? And that is what is, because for every product you'll give me the crude side, I'll show you a bioproduct of equals that can be produced, right? So we said that it is possible for us to come together, jointly explore what could be done and this is an equal partnership of 50-50. So we bring in technology, engineering skills that we know. They bring in their tremendous marketing prowess that they understand. So they bring the customer view and what's required to be done and things like that. I think coming together of 2 of us will actually help accelerate the whole biofuel adoption and driving to what I would call as a low carbon intensity car, which is the eventual goal for all.
Sure. Of course.
So we talk in different languages, COP26 and sustainability, but eventually everybody wants to go to low carbon intensity economy. And I think this is one association that actually helps accelerate this, at least as far as India is concerned.
From a numbers perspective, though, Mr. Joshipura, it's nascent, right? I mean, it'll take some time to build up.
Yes, it will take some time to build up, but as and when we are ready, I'll let you know, Neeraj. But I mean, we are just beginning to cast some numbers across one vertical, so we'll see how that sort of ends up. But we will definitely, I will definitely come back to you. Today, we do not have a number picture on this. Today, it is more a philosophical pathway. But very soon, there's already engagement happening at operating level, and very soon we will be able to bring to both the boards other proposals to say what are the next steps that are required, which starts to put some numbers behind this.
Okay. On the bread and butter business, you had mentioned to me once that you are 2/3 of the market share, and you wouldn't want to lose it at all. Now the program has gained some serious adoption. I was not aware of it, but when you spoke about this technology which enables companies to make round-the-year ethanol production, and I was asking Shri Renuka Sugars if they use your technology, then they said that they are also in the same business. So I'm guessing there is obviously some competition, etc. I'm just trying to understand how is the competitive intensity, simply because almost everybody now knows that India is on the path to have a higher ethanol adoption. And if there is a business opportunity being seen, a lot of people would want to get into it. Is the competitive intensity intensifying, and are you still maintaining your stranglehold on the market share? Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. So, Neeraj, I strongly believe, this is my personal belief also, that if a market expands, it will bring in competition, and actually it's a good sign. So then actually it is telling you that you are not the only one who's saying market is expanding. There are other people who have the similar view, so which is a good thing to have. And it always drives you to higher degree of innovation. As the competition intensity increases, it will push you to do better for the customer. From a customer's perspective, I think it's a very good thing to have. The intensity is higher. And then I was telling somebody else in a conversation a little while ago that every competitor or every organization will bring what they believe is their value to the table. For some, it will be a low-cost offering. For some, it could be a very fast delivery. For some, it could be a life cycle cost of the whole project. For some, it could be advanced technology which gives you benefit in terms of low operating costs. So different levers for different guys. And we are seeing that there are different companies who are bringing in different value propositions to the market. They are each serving their own segment. Having said that, I think we are very, very proud of and very, very conscious of the relationships that we have cultivated over the year of last 35 odd years, when ethanol was not the most sought after word in the town.
I think the term that you're looking for was sexy, but yeah.
I was very sure of the political correctness of that on your program, so that's
completely fine. Now, please finish your point. Sorry for interrupting.
So I think everybody brings their own, and we are very clear. Our relationship is something that we have deeply invested into. We have nurtured, and it takes two to tango, and our customers have equally responded. So we are not going to give up our turf very easily, and we have no plans to do that. We'll keep on innovating. That's the good part. We will keep on living up to our DNA. We'll bring higher value to our customers, and we're going to make it difficult for our competition to beat us. Let them play in their segments. Let them be happy there.
Okay. Last couple of questions, Mr. Joshipura. First is on Satat. We don't end up talking about it too much, but it is obviously a segment that could become really big, because you had once told me that it will probably require one whole show to just explain and how big it could be, potentially as big as ethanol. What is the progress on that? You've, I think, launched a couple of pilot plans, but
unfortunately, we have hit a bit of a roadblock, but I hope it's temporary, because the government, for some reason, they have decided to withdraw. They used to support each capacity creation by roughly about 15 to 20% of the project cost. There was a subsidy that was available to the government, but that they have withdrawn.
Okay.
But I think so what's visible to us today is that they've withdrawn. Obviously, a lot of representations have gone saying can't do this, all this stuff. But what's going to happen is on 1st of April, a new price is going to get notified for the gas. What had happened was for CBG, the price was notified 3 years ago when the gas prices globally were very low.
Sure.
Whereas now it's a completely different situation. So the new price that will come into being, that is number one. And I think maybe the thinking is that you don't need the support if the price is correct. So we are waiting for that So maybe there's a bit of a lull for next couple of months, but I'm sure that it's a very ambitious program of the government. It's very viable. It addresses several issues once again. So I don't see any logical reason for it to die down. Maybe there is some obstacles to be overcome, and I'm sure that over a period of time we will. So by the time we meet next, maybe it will positively be.
So maybe, yeah. Okay, one final question, and that is what you mentioned, that you're already thinking of how you see growth till 2025 as a given, but post 2025 is what you're thinking of. Can you talk a bit about that? We can probably talk about it every quarter, but yeah, still some thoughts.
So what we are looking at is very clearly the global movement is towards a low carbon economy, low carbon intensity economy worldwide, right? And that will trigger many actions across different economies and different geographies in different forms. In some economies which are not agrarian, they may have a very different way of looking at it compared to, say, countries which are tropical in nature, because their problems are different to be solved. But one thing that is abundantly, and I'll give you an example. So we are a tropical agrarian country, and I'll compare us to, let's say, somebody like Norway, which is 8 months in a year frozen. So for them, the solutions can be same as ours. It had to be different solutions, right? But it's so interesting that in Norway, we are talking to but Norway may not have agriculture, but it has a lot of forests. Okay. So we are talking to companies in Norway right now, and very, very interesting dialogue to see how we can use forest residue to create biofuels.
Yeah, sure.
It's a second generation technology. We already have a tie-up with Sika for Sweden for that, which we jointly own the technology now. So we will bring that to the fore, and they will set up an ethanol producing system based on forest residue, because that solves the problem for them as well. Their problem is of a different kind, but it solves the problem. So I think, to my mind, solving humanity's problem that address low carbon economy is the right way to go forward. And that if we define our mission like that, which is what we have done, then probably the whole vista is open to you, from bioplastics at one end, aviation fuels, there is maritime fuels. The same thing will apply to all modes of transport. It's not going to be any different, right? So we have these two platforms called BioPrism and BioMobility. BioMobility is around all things that move, so all the mobility solutions. And then BioPrism is around all renewable chemicals and materials. And we clearly see a long pathway ahead of us, where every time we will move forward with what we know and build on that as a building block to actually contribute in a very meaningful way to what I would call as a low carbon intensity economy.
Indeed. So, Mr. Joshipura, before we wrap up, so this is, thank you for giving the long-term picture. And like I said, we can keep on getting these nuggets from you every quarter. But before we wrap up, just wrapping up with a short-term question. Now that 9 months are done, you've exhibited in quarter 2 and quarter 3 the excitement on the order inflow front. Safe to assume that for the year at large, when you wrap up, you'll be northwards of 2,000 crores, 9% EBITDA, 8 to 9% EBITDA margins, and record high order book. Safe assumptions?
Well, I don't know whether Sachin is listening to that, but I don't think. So it's not fair for me to put numbers, because that's not what we do. Having said that, what I would say is this: there is no reason for us to not.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, fair call. We'll see the numbers when we see them. But but congrats on the order inflows, and hopefully the commodity price movements stabilize, because it's hurting a lot of Indian companies, not just you. Yeah. So thank you for speaking to us today, Mr. Joshipura.
Thank you, Neeraj. Pleasure as always.
Yeah, lovely talking to you. Viewers, thanks for tuning in.